this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about, oh boy. So the White House, it seems like everybody's feels like we're in a recession already, and we're just kind of waiting on Thursday. We should get, the official information about the GDP, because you have to have like two consecutive like negative growth to have it officially be a recession. So you don't actually know if you're in a recession until you're in it, but it basically feels like it. I've talked to people who've said, they've remembered Jimmy Carter very well, and it feels worse than Jimmy Carter, which is really incredible because when Afghanistan went on like last year, I asked my dad, could he ever remember like a disastrous first couple of months for a president? My dad said no. And I did a picture one time I posted with Biden and Jimmy Carter, and most people were like, Jimmy Carter wasn't a bad guy. Biden's bad, and he's a bad guy. So it seems like he's really the worst right now in the minds and hearts of the people, it seems. But it seems like we're going into a recession. But the White House won't ever admit it because they've already like changed the language on their website. I did post this on Facebook, so some of you are already probably aware of this, but we're going to go through that today. Also, there's been some bills that have been going around lately that Democrats been pushing for hysteria. Like there was a birth control bill. Republicans voted against it in the House. They're like, oh, the Republicans are against birth control. So I read the bill. And it seems like a pretty pointless, useless bill to me, in my opinion, just going through it. I didn't read it like 20 times or something like that, but just going through it like the one time, I'm like, okay. But there was one section in there that I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing that people didn't vote for this, because there's a section that specifically is like carving out the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So it seems like it's a useless bill that doesn't need to exist except for the purpose of making a bill that can supersede religious liberty. So we'll talk at least about a little bit of that section, what's going on with that. Also, people are there was a post that was going around this weekend about one of the congresswomen in my state in Michigan, and someone's like, Lisa McClain voted against this bill that is against that protects interracial marriage, because it's the Defense of Marriage Act or whatever that they have going on. Well, it's not Defense of Marriage, it's something else that it's called, but mostly to codify gay marriage into law, and they also have interracial marriage. No, they don't need to combine them. But the purpose of combining them is to make angry posts like that to enrage minorities, to say, see, these Republicans hate you colored folk. They don't want you mixing with the white folks. Yeah, that's the purpose of that. I don't appreciate it because I found out about at least this post, which I'm not surprised posts like this went around, but it went pretty viral on Facebook. But I was taking my sister to church, and she lives in Macomb County, and Lisa is the congresswoman over that area. And so a friend of hers who doesn't live in that area saw the post and sent it to her, and Angelina read it out loud. And so I'm like, no, that's not what that bill does. And I explained to her the purpose of why they're conflating the two, which I'm sure her friend also actually won't appreciate them doing. And it's crazy how they use one group for another sort of purpose constantly. So we'll talk about some of that today. Also, monkeypox is apparently they're really trying to push it as a really big global issue. There was a report done that like 95% is contracted one particular way. I don't know if we can technically call it an STD right now, but it's and only like gay bi men. Like that's how it's like contract. You can get it like other ways, with very, very close bodily contact for within like a bit of time, but that's like 5%. So the idea that people want to make it into a big thing is really bizarre. It kind of really seems like that sounds like a you kind of problem. But we can talk about it. We're going to talk about all that stuff today. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blackteennews.com, check out different articles that I have on the website, different merch that we have on the website, like these cool shirts, like the Crack Whack Again, Trump 2024. You are not that special. Got that. Also got these cute little mugs as well. We got the My Money, My Business shirt. We got the cool goat hoodies and t-shirts. You guys can all check out all that stuff at blackteennews.com. I am still working, plugging away at my book, new book on abortion, is how it deals with Christianity. And I prefer to make secular arguments just because it gets, people are like, oh, you're a Christian, you believe X, Y, and Z, and where do you base your beliefs? It's so funny that so many people say that, like, life starts at conception. Like, where do you base your beliefs in that? I'm like, that's a scientific fact. It's not a belief. And people have been questioning me. As a matter of fact, I just replied to somebody like maybe 5 minutes ago, a little more than 5 minutes ago. And they asked about where you get your beliefs from and why is it right for you and a group of people like you to decide what's right for everyone else based on your beliefs. I'm like, you answer your own question. Why is it okay for you to make a belief about when life begins and decide when you can kill people about it? I'm just saying, if everyone has different beliefs of where life begins, explain to me why it doesn't make sense why we shouldn't err on the side of caution. Like if we were driving together in a car, like parked, and we're about to hit reverse, and I said, oh shoot, I think there's a baby behind the back wheel. And then I kept going, you'd be like, what are you doing? You could run over a baby. And if I said, yeah, but we don't know if there's a baby behind me, right? We don't know that, right? You would think that was crazy. You would be like, no, we need to like get out and check and make sure that no one's going to die. That's what we would say. That's what we would do. So if you're not sure, and maybe someone else is sure, or someone's iffy on it, like there's all these philosophical debates. They're debates, correct? But we do know that life, at least cellular life, we can at least admit like cellular life begins at conception, right? We can admit that it's human DNA, right? Like a separate DNA. It's not the mother's DNA. It's separate, cellular human life on a self-determined path to becoming like a baby out of the womb in like 9 months. It just needs time and some nutrients and the oxygen in the blood and stuff from getting through the placenta and umbilical cord and all the other stuff, and it'll be fine. So I think it makes a lot of sense that life starts at conception. I don't. You can have other ideas, but they're just opinions and beliefs, and it's really subjective. So I just don't understand why people find my point of view so insane or unreasonable. It's very consistent and solid and rigid. I'll give you that. But we are talking about lives. So yeah, why do you think we should go by your beliefs? It's like up in the air for you. People are like, well, maybe life starts with a heartbeat. Maybe it starts with consciousness. Maybe it starts when you come out the womb. Maybe it starts when you're viable with shifts like from maybe 24 weeks, 23 weeks, 22. It'll shift earlier with technology. Like, why does any of that make sense to have like a scalable metric of when you might be alive or not? That's bananas to me. That's bananas to me. But whatever. I find it important to write this book because I'm sick of answering questions about like numbers 5 and other things like that. And I do think it's important. I mean, a lot of this country is largely Christian and stuff, to be able to still articulate your points well, even though people may not get them. But people need to know that your beliefs aren't just rooted in like, I don't know, random feelings in the sky, that there's like some logic rooted in it. So I think that'll also help too. I'm writing it pretty fast, so I like to get it out before the election time. So I'll keep you updated on it. I was working on it this morning, but just keep up to date. Make sure you guys go on when you're on the website. That you enter in your email address. Make sure that you guys are following me across all my different social media platforms on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, on TikTok. All my handles are at Black Tea News, with the exception of Twitter. That one's at True Black Tea. That's also my backup TikTok. And my handles are black like the color, tea like the drink. And also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Whether it's $10, $20, or more, I really appreciate everything that you guys do. If you can give, really appreciate if you can go the extra mile. If you can't, I appreciate everyone who shares, comments, get someone else to like and share. I want to, shout out to everyone who becomes a new top fan on social media every week. That's from interactions, and all that really helps draw other people to the page and does ultimately help Black Tea. So you're all very much appreciated. Also want to thank Bright Mission Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. Just glad for the opportunity to be here. So, oh gosh, let me talk about this Biden thing first before I talk about this thing that's kind of going on in Michigan. It's a little nutty. But I do have a funny for the day, a meme for the day. So I'm going to show you the meme first, or maybe I should show you the video first, and then I will show you the meme.
And as you all saw just a few minutes ago, the president is doing better. He slept well last night. He ate his breakfast and lunch. He actually showed me his plate. Didn't ask about the menu, but I did see an empty plate with crumbs, and I have some guesses about what was there, but didn't ask.
Oh, isn't that so cute? Everyone's laughing like, he little Joe Biden, he ate his whole plate. He ate his whole plate. So people are, no, Joe Biden got COVID, right? And so people are noting like, man, you've been vaxxed a lot, and you still got it. Kamala has gotten it. Jen Psaki got it. So many people have gotten it, and Joe Biden's gotten it. And I heard a comedian say, like, this is COVID's last shot. And like, we want him to be okay. But at the same time, if he's okay, it doesn't seem like the virus is like, that powerful anymore, because he's like already way up there and kind of not with it. But someone really went ape. Conservative Ant, I think, is Conservative Ant. He's a Hispanic, gay, Republican, conservative out in Florida, I think. He has a pretty big following, but he just went crazy because they were like, oh, it kind of doesn't matter where we got it from, or like just kind of shrugged it off. And he's like, you guys were tracking all of us. You guys were tracking us. You wanted to know how we got it. Now it's like not important how he got it. And he just like flipped his phone down and just started like beating his screen just in hysteria. I mean, he was acting, but it was like justified frustration, I suppose. I mean, he was putting on a show, but he makes a good point. Like, why isn't it relevant to the rest of American people how he's gotten it, who else might have it, etc. So anyway, the cleaned his plate thing, I thought this was pretty good meme here with Joe Biden. Instead of like, that's from, Biden getting his presidential freedom honor medal or whatever it was that Obama gave him, and clean the plate thing. So that makes me laugh. That makes me laugh. Oh, I love the memes. So before I get into like the other news with Biden, so today I saw the Gateway Pundit had an article about the Michigan election. So a local news channel had an image. I'm not exactly sure how it got out, or if they aired it, or if someone screenshot it and got it out. I'm not 100% clear on that. But they did an article like, why does this news station already have the results of the primary when our primary hasn't happened yet? And apparently the explanations, they did reach out to the news station and they said that they're just testing their system, and they put in numbers just to like, I know, get them ready or play with it or whatever. And they're not real numbers, because some people are looking at it. there was they put on TikTok and they're asking questions and people are like, oh, it's fraud. Oh, they've already rigged the race, etc. Blah, blah, blah. And they had Tudor Dixon having a blowout. And then they had Ryan Kelly. And then they had, I think Rinky was maybe fourth and Saldana was last. I'm not mistaken. And so that's what they had it. And I was looking at the numbers and the percentages. And I'm not gonna say right now who I think why I think those numbers are so wrong and who like as far as the order, but it just really didn't seem very accurate as I am like, so if someone was going to rig the race, the way that the numbers panned out looked, I'd be suspicious. Those were the numbers. So I don't know. I think maybe somebody just kind of plugged them in according to what they think or maybe how they want it to go, or I don't know. But I guess we always have, I don't have a screenshot to show you guys and load it up. But I guess we can always look, after the primary and see what it is. I'm sure those won't be the same numbers. And I'm sure they won't be anywhere in that order that they were at. That I'm just like, this doesn't even look real in the least bit to me. And I guess some stations were saying that they do that, and some stations were saying that they didn't. Look, if you're in any state, go ahead and vote. Go ahead and vote. Please don't just tell yourself that it's worthless or it's pointless. That sort of negativity can really drag down, an election, the results of an election. Like people were very disheartened when they had the Senate runoffs, and that made a difference. There were people out who work for the RNC and other groups that I talked to that were on the ground, and there was a lot of people who just felt like after the 2020 election, big presidential election, that there wasn't a point in going out and really voting. And you have 2 Democrat senators right now from that state, and we've gotten some stuff through that we haven't liked. And we're always hoping that Manchin and Sinema do the right thing rather than having a Republican majority. Now, I'm not saying Republicans wouldn't do some crazy dumb stuff anyway and take us off a bipartisan measure, but if it was some votes that they had, especially I think with some of Biden's nominees, like with Rachel Levin, for example, I think if it was something that could be more solidly on a razor thin edge margin, that you would get more Republicans that are gonna be like, I'm not about to be the only one, but since they can basically get it the 50 to 50 with like Kamala breaking the tie, then Romney might be like, well, I want to be a hero today, and then and then they'll get those extra numbers, 52, whatever the numbers are, 52, 53. So just life would be really different if we had won those seats. Plus, they were going around saying, we're going to give everybody an extra $2,000. And they did not keep that promise. I don't know why people aren't like holding them accountable. We spent too much money. I'm not saying they should have done it, but it's wild to me with all the money that they spent, that's a promise they did not keep to people. That's crazy to me. Like, we're going to give you $2,000. And then they gave us 12 instead. And they're like, well, it was 14. It was 14 because they're like, well, the $600 was already like a down payment that you got. And I'm like, a whole nother man made that promise, bruh. Like, you literally said, vote for these people and you get $1,400, $2,000, and they end up doing 14. I just didn't understand it, and I still don't understand it. But please go out and vote. A lot of people have voted because they've already done their absentees. In Michigan, there's one more debate. There's was it Thursday or Wednesday? It's Oakland County debate. It's soon. It's this week. I'll tell. I don't remember if it's Wednesday or Thursday, but it is this week. If people don't know for sure, still got a little bit of time. I normally vote on the day. I don't love absentee ballots and voting by mail. I don't like it personally. it just makes me a little unsettled. I'm not saying there's something wrong with like in normal circumstances. Um, I just like the idea of going to the poll and doing it myself. And this is like I felt this way prior to 2020. So it's not like me talking about like ballot stuffers or something like that. It's just like the idea of my vote in dropping it off at an area where I know there's lots of I just would rather do it at the polling station. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So let's talk about inflation a little bit. So sorry, not inflation, recession. So it's pretty bad. There's like former Obama experts gearing up and acknowledging that things are pretty bad.
I think there's a very high likelihood of recession when we've been in this kind of situation before. Recession has essentially always followed when inflation has been high and unemployment has been low. Soft landings represent a kind of triumph of hope over experience. I think we're very unlikely to see one.
Very unlikely to see a soft landing. So the White House pointed out, what is a recession? While some maintain that 2 consecutive quarters of a falling real GDP constitute as a recession, that is neither the official definition nor the way economists evaluate the state of business cycle. Instead, both official determinations of recessions and economist assessment of the economic activity are based on a holistic look at the data, including the labor market, consumer and business spending, industrial production, and incomes. Based on these data, it is unlikely that the decline in GDP in the first quarter of this year, even if followed by another GDP decline in the second quarter, indicates a recession. So everybody's been talking about how so Thursday we'll know. We'll know. They won't admit it, they won't say it, they'll have their spin, and they'll keep saying things that they've basically been saying the whole time. They'll try to cite like unemployment numbers. They'll be like, we have the greatest growth, obviously from everyone not working during the pandemic to people starting to go back to work. And they'll say stuff like that. They'll talk about people getting higher wages, even though like inflation is eating up those wages. They'll spin it in whatever way that they need to not say recession. Just like they were like, oh, inflation isn't gonna happen, to oh, it's just something that's transitory, and they're like, well, everybody's got inflation. Like it just keeps evolving, and now they can acknowledge that it's here, but it's something that they're entirely blaming on Putin, which I don't like. I don't like at all. One, because it's not true, and two, because I think it makes us look weak and like they have more power over us, and I don't understand why the president is doing that, other than because not wanting to take responsibility. Because if it's to gear up people, make them more angry at Putin, I think obviously that doesn't look like that's really going to happen. I mean, there's still people who have the Ukraine stuff in their bio, but that's at least that's all it's getting. I don't hear people in the real world talk about the Putin price hike. I don't hear people in the real world saying that. I don't even see people on TikTok like really saying that. Like maybe like a couple months ago, but I don't see that being like the narrative. And granted, I'm in my algorithm, but people in my algorithm also like mock other people and know their algorithms, and eventually they trickle their way. I have not seen people say that. And I don't, when people go to the gas station and people are mumbling about things, they don't say, sorry, Putin. That's not what they say. They say that Joe Biden, they talk about Joe Biden. They might talk about like Granholm and other folks and how they're like invested in like green energy and other stuff like that. People believe that people in our government want the prices to be high. And I'm glad and I'm more than happy to help continue, watering those seeds when I have those conversations at gas stations with people. And if you're not having conversations at the pump with people, you're really missing out. You're really missing out on a good opportunity to talk some politics. But I'm curious how they're going to spin it. But there's going to be spin. Now we'll see if we're legit in it. It feels like it. Um, Most people already think we're there, and it's pretty obvious. And the fact that they're bracing and changing the definition so they don't have to say it is, so we could already see the spin. I think that they probably know, but we'll see. We'll have a better idea on Thursday where we are. But so much about this White House is about being concerned about the perceptions of how people are looking at situations rather than just fixing them. And I'm obviously not a Democrat, but I wonder just how can people really feel about that when they see all these articles about all these meetings with celebrities and phone calls with that, and saying, hey, we need you to TikTok this, we need you to do this message, or them getting together with people who work with, who do TikToks and paying them, coordinating for them to like do some messaging. Because they don't need a good message if they just solve the problem. So many people want him to do well, Democrats to do well. They're willing to give him a pass on a lot of things because they just want their vote to be validated, that they voted against Trump, that they voted against Republicans, and that they gave Democrats the power, full power, and they want to feel validated in that. So they're willing to keep a blind eye to a lot of things. So they just have to do just a little bit better than what they're doing, but they can't. And I don't know what the balance is between incompetence and just being so stuck in the ideology, or just almost sabotaging some stuff on purpose so they can get things that they want done at the cost of, I guess, some seats and elections and other stuff. I mean, you always lose some anyway. I know they're trying to recover from how bad it will be, and they're pushing some fringe sort of issues to try to get some votes back, but it looks like it's going to be bad. If Republicans cannot be idiots, they should run away with this kind of stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. Oh, Mr. Biden. Another thing that's going on is that people are flipping out about monkeypox. However, there was a study that was done, and monkeypox is very much something that is very much I don't think they're ready to call it like an STD, but it's pretty much how it is infecting people, gay men, gay bi men. And there has been, I think, like 5 cases of people dying, but there have been like 2 children who were infected, and CDC director was like really kind of awkward admitting that.
We do have seen now 2 cases that have occurred in children. Both of those children are traced back to individuals who come from the men who have sex with men community, the gay men community. And so when we have seen those cases in children, they have generally been what I call adjacent to the community most at risk.
Yeah, that was kind of awkward. I thought they were gonna like work with her like comm skills, because she was like really bad like during the pandemic. So yeah, monkeypox is like 95% of the cases that have been observed have been like through sex. If you have like, you can get it through like skin to skin contact, but it's got to be like really close, like infected area within like extended amount of time. It's got to be like, if you use a towel or something, it's like infected area to, other areas and stuff. So I'm hoping, I mean, so a lot of people are jumping to like how those kids get there. Actually, Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted out that clip asking how those kids get there and implying something heinous. I don't want to jump there. I don't know if we have to jump there. I can understand people jumping there, because considering that it's mostly just passed via sex, but there's a 5%, and it's sad that anyone has that, especially children, and I hope it was a towel, for sure. I don't want to think about the alternative, but it's who's declaring this a big emergency, but actually the president like superseded like the panel and the board because they didn't think it was, and it's not. But if you're saying it's on the level of like COVID-19 or something, obviously it's not, and everybody doesn't need to be worried about getting monkeypox. And I hope that we don't get to the point where saying that or something is going to get you kicked off social media, like people were kicking off stuff for stuff that you're saying about COVID. So, yeah, it's if you're worried about monkeypox and you don't, and you shouldn't just be worried about if you're a gay man who likes to obviously sleep with gay men. Like we're talking about origin of like the spread is like festivals and people doing like orgies and other stuff like that. So like my opinion, you know, guys, I'm religious, so I think you guys should be people should be having sex inside of marriage. So I don't promote like sexual promiscuity or anything like that, but at least just be responsible. You know, this thing is like going around, and don't be out here wilding out, and you'll be okay. But this isn't something that we should allow media and the government, you know, the CDC or whoever to make some kind of global pandemic. Like if they're like, we need mail-in ballots for monkeypox. I don't think we'll get to that or anything like it. But I don't see the point of why it's red alert right now. It's really, really bizarre. Really, really bizarre, but that's the world that we're living in right now. I want to get back to some of these fringe things that the Democrats are doing to try to tear folks away and make us all more divided. So there was a vote on a birth control bill, and the birth control bill, it was trending. People like, oh, these terrible Republicans because they voted against it, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And when you looked at the bill, because someone had tagged me on TikTok asking my opinion on it, because the video talking about like, oh, look at all these Republicans, they voted against birth control. And then they showed a poll that said, look at how many percentage of Americans are pro-birth control. And I'm like, so what does that have to do with anything? Like, because you hear about it and you're like, are they saying that like people have to pay, like the government has to pay for all this birth control? Because I don't believe that that's something that we should be making our taxpayer dollars, you know, always do, and other stuff like that. So I'm just like, what is this actually really about? So reading it through it, I don't know what the end game of that video was, if it was for manipulation, if they didn't quite understand it. I don't even know if they themselves had read the bill. So I read it. It wasn't that long. I read people arguing about it in the comments, and it seemed like some people did or didn't read it. But going through it, a lot of it, they're talking about like, if you go to pharmacy or something, you should be able to get access to the birth control, and the pharmacist we're going to supply it to you. If it's out of stock, they will tell you when it's back in stock. If it's not something that they normally carry, then they will tell you where you can go get it and stuff. And that seems like that's okay. I don't know that they were like in dire necessary need to pass a bill like this. So you always kind of question, why is it that they are trying so desperately to push bills that don't necessarily need to be there, which I guess some people really feel like they really need to do something. But maybe it is just a strategy to have headlines and videos like that to say, ha ha, these Republicans are against birth control. Because if you remember the war on women, let's go all the way back to 2012. Like Mitt Romney was asked a question about birth control or something like that. I don't even remember his answer exactly, but that's what sparked like the narrative of the war on women. Like, it seems really silly, like looking back at it all. I mean, it was silly at the time, but that they were like, war on women. Romney has a war on women. The PS binders full of women, which it was like resumes of women, like But they made it all seem so nefarious because they hated his guts so much. That's another thing that really bothers me about Mitt Romney, and it always seems like he wants to, I don't know, like he enjoys when they cross over and they're like, Mitt Romney, he may be a Republican and we'll hate him forever anyway, but at least he has integrity because he doesn't like Trumpers. I'm like, he knows these people hate him. He knows like Joe Biden like alleged that he was going to put black people back in chains. Like, how do you just like be like, it was a campaign. We'll get over it. Like, that's a pretty serious thing. That's a pretty serious thing. So I don't like a lot of things about Mitt. I don't get him. But that's when they started the war on women narrative. So I think that's what it is, really, because they expected Republicans to vote this down. And you might be saying, well, why did Republicans vote it down? I don't know why all the Republicans voted down for it, or so many did. I was trying to find, like, I looked up, like, Massey and other folks to see if maybe, Massey wouldn't have, I don't think he would have put anything on it, actually. I was trying to find, like, other people talking about the bill, and I didn't quite find anything out in the open. So I just, from deduction, I'm going to guess, in the bill, it talks about there's you can't have an exception for like religious exceptions. And it says in the bill, let me just read this page. Except as stated under subsection B, this act supersedes and applies to the law of the federal government and each state government and the implementation of such law, whether statutory, common law, or otherwise, and whether adopted before or after the date of enactment of this act, and neither the federal government nor state government shall administer, implement, or enforce any law, rule, regulation, standard, or other provision having the force and effect of law that conflicts with any provision of this act, notwithstanding any other provision of the federal law, including the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993. So they're trying to pass a bill, and Democrats voted for it, that does not have any religious liberty protections in it. So I think this is a Walgreens. There was a story about someone who went to a Walgreens, and reportedly it was a married couple that were trying to get some birth control, and the person who was working there at the time didn't believe in birth control or whatever, so they wouldn't sell it to them. But there was another person there that did sell it to them, or would sell it to them. So people like blew up the story, were really upset about it. And I'm just kind of like, well, they got their stuff, right? Someone else sold it to them, but people were upset that there are people out there who would say, hey, I can't do this because of my religious liberty. Now, I don't think that all stores maybe can be able to do that, but I believe it was Walgreens, allows people to say, hey, I'm not going to violate my religious faith like that and sell you something that conflicts. And most people I know are okay with birth control, but there's like a lot of Catholics I talk to, for example, are not. So, and I'm assuming other people, but I don't know if that would like cross my mind and be like, oh, I'm not gonna sell you this. But there is also the worry that other sort of pills that are contraceptives, like Plan B, that can also have like abortion type of actually, that's what, if there's a fertilized egg, it will keep it from implanting. So people don't like Plan B. There's some people who are like, hey, Plan B, like on the right side, who are like pro-life. I've had a friend or two that's like, maybe this will be controversial, but I feel it's a difference between you deliberately taking Plan B because there's fertilization versus like there's a chance like maybe off somewhere. I don't know if I think that logic quite tracks, but that's where some people are with it, and other people are like, absolutely not, no Plan B because it can destroy fertilized egg. Now, we know that like Hobby Lobby and like Little Sisters of Porn stuff, they didn't like folks like them saying, hey, we don't want to provide access to certain stuff that violates our faith, and they got dragged to Supreme Court. Little Sisters of Poor went to court twice. Biden said when he was on the campaign trail that he wanted to repeal certain liberties that the Little Sisters of the Poor had after like those court cases. So they talk about they don't want people's beliefs being enforced upon them like in the secular world, but they're really, really focused on making sure that religious people cannot operate in a society if they choose to be religious. So if you just want to say, hey, I don't want to sell you this, or I feel like I can't sell you this, someone else will do it, but I can't do it, it would violate my conscience. The Democrats voted that they don't think that should be something that you should be able to do. So I mean, I think that's really the point of the bill. I think the headlines are probably the point of the bill, but I do think they're trying to dip their toe in the water with how far they can go with chipping away at your religious liberty. By the way, the codifying Roe bill that they had that went down in flames, they had provisions like that too in there. And Murkowski and Collins, who are, pro-choice, but they're Republicans, they're like, we can't support this bill. Like it would supersede, first of all, it would supersede so many different state laws, like hundreds of state laws. But they're like, this is a bill that will violate religious liberty. And then Blumenthal and other people are like, oh no, that's not true. But it like literally says that in the bills. It says like something similar to what the bill I just read to you. And it says in it that notwithstanding any other provision in federal law, including the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act of 1993, it's in there too. So they're trying to be slick about it. So these people have to be very careful when they vote on these bills, because they are trying to make these headlines that'll go viral that people who aren't going to read the bill, doesn't matter if it's 6 pages, 14 pages, there's so many people who will not read a bill, will not notice something like that and say, oh gosh, that's kind of fishy, or oh, that's bad. Or there's people who may not know enough to know that why it's bad, but they'll keep trying to push the headlines like war on women. They want to get rid of birth control. They want to make a society where it's just like the Handmaid's Tale or whatever. That's the route that they want to go. But if we don't say, hey, these people are lying, and get the facts and show them the evidence and explain their evil plot, basically, they're going to get away with it. So that's one reason why I do what I do. And hopefully that empowers you guys with information. I'll go ahead and post something about it on my online so you guys can share that information as well, because people need to know that there is a dastardly plot to make everyone conform to secular liberalism, which is a religion all on its own, I promise you. Everyone is religious in some sort of way. Everyone is religious in some sort of way, especially these liberals. Especially these liberals. They have their beliefs that they want to push on people. Like, no one deserves to work. No one should have to work without a living wage. Where'd you get that? Why? Why do you say that? That's a belief. You can substantiate it, right? Or you can try to. And explain it, why you think it would be good that no one works without a living wage, whatever that's supposed to mean. But you got to know that's based on a belief, right? It's you don't have the right coming into existence to have a job waiting for you that's going to pay you a living wage. That wouldn't be a natural right or a negative right, an inalienable right. Like, you have the right to not be killed. You have a right to pursue happiness. You don't have a right to a living wage, which is like an elitist concept, like rooted in eugenics. You guys don't even know. You gotta go way back. That is not something that's just like got whipped out of the air today. there are people who thought that they were too good to work for like competitive wages. They believed in like living, you know, these living wages. And just because you broke don't mean that you don't have a air of arrogance to you. That's a belief. That's a belief. People will tell you that people should be able to have an abortion because no one is entitled to your body, even though it might save their life. I'm like, okay, so why are you for Medicare for all? Because I mean, my body, the extension of that is my labor, and I use my labor to get funds. But you want to make it so that I have to pay for your health care. I got into a friend of mine goes back and forth with, he's a libertarian on TikTok, and he goes back and forth with like debunking these big accounts. So he always has like a lot of lefties who will follow. And I was going back and forth with quite a few people. And it's amazing to me that they'll say, hey, so the point of the argument was he was saying healthcare isn't free. And then there's this big account called Good Trouble. Like, we know that it's not actually free. It's, people, the government will pay these people. And so I just kind of mocked them. I'm like, oh, we didn't mean literally free when we literally said free. We meant someone else will pay for it. And then all these people wanted to argue back and forth. I'm like, you don't know how insurance works. I'm like, insurance is a risk-based, they would rather you pay for it and never get sick. That's what they would really want. They don't do insurance out of the kindness of their hearts just so if you get sick. Like, that's how insurance actually works. And I'm like, nothing is stopping you guys from getting with your neighbors and your friends and pulling your money together and paying for each other's stuff. Nothing is stopping you guys from doing that. And then they're insisting that we all need to do that with Medicare for all and be forced into it because it's for the good of everyone else. And I'm like, everyone will be taxed more if we do that. It's not going to be just the billionaires. You know that, right? And then they're like, well, that'll still be good. I don't know. I don't think they know that how much other people get taxed in other countries to pay for this stuff. And the quality won't be as good. And then you won't have the choices and the options that we have here. And I'm like, I'm just like, no, I don't want to do it. But they think I'm selfish for saying, no, I don't want to do it. And they're saying you have to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, what about how much money do you give to other people then? Are you giving like 50% of your income? And so this person I was going back and forth with said, I give 3%. That's the most I can do out of my income. And I send my family in Haiti money and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And I laughed at did a laughing face at their 3%. And they're like, how dare you laugh at my 3%? I do more than you do. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, you definitely don't do more than me at 3%. But, I'm not the one demanding that people have to pay. And if people pay taxes on this stuff, it's not about what you can't afford. It's what the government says you have to pay. So I'm like, so if you're saying people have to pay, then you should be doing more than 3%. I'm not trying to force anyone. You are. But people just can't wrap their mind around it because they want what they want. And so I think in the best interest of everyone, politics needs to be about depowering government and trying to make people give them as much liberty as possible and protect liberty as early as possible. Like, that's one reason why I'm like, life at conception, protect them there, because I don't like all these other sort of distinctions that people will draw lines at, because historically people have drawn lines at other places for their benefit. I think you got to do what's most rigid, most fair as possible for people. And just, I want to just throw this out there. Like, when people talk about life and when it begins and when we're going to respect rights, too many people are thinking about it just as a you infringe on me, I infringe on you sort of thing. Like the mother infringing on her child, etc. Like, that's not the only reason why we have rights and we protect them and etc. right, and laws. Like, it's also to protect and limit the government. So if we're telling the government that there's no right to life with our children in our wombs, you're telling the government that they don't have to respect the life of your children in the wombs. And if you think the only reason why they won't go infringe on that is because of your bodily autonomy, look me straight in the eye and tell me after like 2020, 2021 that you think the government cares about our bodily autonomy. Look me in the eye and tell me that. So a disturbing thought I just wanted to tell you. Just a disturbing thought I thought was important to leave with you there. Kamala Harris said something wicked the other day that was just, I want to share really quickly.
To put it in law, there may be litigation, but we will be in a much better position than to not do that. And, listen, women are getting pregnant every day in America. And this is a real issue, and we need to act with a sense of haste about what is at play, what is at stake, and codifying Roe will be an important moment in terms of putting back in place protections for the folks who are at risk right now because of what the court did in Dobbs just weeks ago.
People are getting pregnant, having babies every day. It's just, to me, it's so bizarre to hear people talk about pregnancy as if it's just some kind of new phenomenon. I'm just like thinking about, I don't know, women who had kids during the Dark Ages and the Depression and just throughout so many harsh times in history. And we're so educated today. There's so many opportunities today. There's so many social safety nets. There's opportunities for charity. Like, even, people are like, it's so hard to afford stuff. And people are like, well, what are you going to do to help for like women pay for college and their kids and their medical bills and all that? I'm just like, what would happen if politicians, like, instead of like all the money they raised during like BLM, like in 2020, in the Minnesota Freedom Fund to bail out rioters, what if someone was like, this family here, they have this medical bill. Can we raise them like 10 grand or 20 grand right now? What if Kamala Harris did that? What if Steve Carell did that and they like match stuff? What would happen? And if they reach a cap or something, because you don't want to just make people like, I don't know, just like keep doing thing after thing when you can go help someone else. They could cap it and be like, here's someone else, just pay it forward, just something like that. But when they decided to come together to fundraise, it was to bail out rioters. And the I'm saying it's so weird, Minnesota Freedom Fund, they don't care what you do. They just don't like cash bail. So they will bail out anyone, including alleged murderers. So that's what Steve Carell from The Office, Harry Styles, who's a singer. Was he in One Direction or something? The kid who wears the dresses who's going to be like Adam Warlock in the next Guardians movie, I think, or maybe. Who else did it? Oh, Kamala Harris, of course, did it. Other celebrities retweeting this stuff. Why not pick causes that could really, really help people? Another thing I didn't understand, like during the pandemic, there's all these businesses that are like failing, and they're like, stay home, stay home, stay home, stay home. Like, what? Imagine if like a celebrity was just like, you know what? I know you can't work. I'm gonna buy up a bunch of your inventory, and we're just gonna donate it or something that would have helped people. It seems so wild to me that there was so much, I don't know, fake concern, misplaced concern, while people lost everything. I'm like, if you want to really help people, you can. And if you really want to help women, you can. But it's really interesting to me that it really seems like they're more interested in meeting abortion quotas than helping women. Again, like, women having babies isn't new. There's 3 million births, like, that's like the number in the US, 3 million like a year. So it's not new, hasn't been new. People have been having babies for a long time without all this access to abortion. And I'm not saying that people didn't have like self-abortions, other stuff like that, but there was a quota. Like, people wanted to increase the numbers of abortions. They wanted to go from like, hey, there's 20,000. We want to make sure we hit 40. They want people to have them. It is an industry. But we know that it's not a good thing. People will acknowledge that it's not a good thing. They're kind of changing their language. Elizabeth Warren, war on pregnancy crisis centers. If it's not a good thing and we want less of it, we have to remind people it's not a good thing. We have to act like it's not a good thing. We have to vocalize it's not a good thing. Because it just kind of seems like you're trying to protect the thing instead of protecting the woman who feels unfortunately desperate enough to be in a situation where she gets it. And I keep saying, like, if it's a necessary evil, it does not need to be option A or B or C. It needs to be all the way at the end. So what can we do to help women in these circumstances, these situations, when they feel like they need abortion? Like, can we help them with babysitting, finding them a family who might, if they don't feel like they're ready to be a parent, someone else who could help parent, or help give them the sort of resources to know that they can do it and they can look after and go for their career. I was doing some research today, reading some articles and stuff, looking at different celebrities talk about their abortions today. And I mean, just so many people just saying, I didn't think I could do both. Like Keke Palmer seemed a little annoyed because on social media, Keke Palmer just starred in the Nope film by Jordan Peele. I think it's Jordan Peele. I know it's Peele, but I think it's Jordan Peele. Just did the movie Nope. And Keke Palmer was in it. So people decided to compare Keke Palmer, who when she was really little, she did Akilah and the Bee. And she's also a television host. She's got a good career, but people decided to compare her to Zendaya for whatever reason, which I thought it was a weird comparison. And it's probably just because they're black young women. And I wasn't reading all the critiques about it, but she weighed in and she said, I've been, acting since I was 11. I was the first Black Cinderella on Broadway. I have over 100 credits to my name, and she's like, I'm not you can't compare me to anyone, is what she said. And she said that the fact that they were comparing it showed a little bit of colorism. And I'm just thinking, it's not that deep. People compare people all the time. People compare me to Candace Owens. I'm just like, I wouldn't phrase, I mean, Candace is great at what she does. I wouldn't phrase things the way that Candace frames stuff. And exactly, I think she has, I appreciate the way that she does things, and we're just not the same. We're just both black. Consider ourselves conservatives, which I've been for a very long time. She had an aha moment. I've basically, as long as I've been interested in politics, I've believed a particular way. So, and people call me little Candace is what they'll say. I'm like, I'm way bigger than her. So I don't even think that's an appropriate sort of insult they would throw at me. And I'm like, I'm definitely bigger than Candace. So I'm not little Candace. You can at least call me big Candace then. But people make a big comparison. So I didn't know. I didn't think it was a big deal. And I'm not saying she made it a big deal, but she gave her 2 cents. She was like, you can't compare me. And as she was listing off her career, I'm just like, this would be really more impactful if, I don't know, if I knew that she didn't have an abortion so she could feel like she could complete her career, because she said she didn't feel like she could do all that and be a mother at the same time. And I think that's, I don't know, women find it like Michelle Williams, she's also an actress, but, she got her Golden Globe, I think it was, and basically said, because of reproductive rights and a woman's choice and ability to do that, they can decide when they can have a family and plan it appropriately when it, feels right, and do what's best for the, et cetera. I don't think women should feel empowered with the option to take the life of their children, for the sake of a dream. I mean, you can still complete your dreams and your goals, and even if you have to shift your dreams and your goals because of a little person that you brought into the world, is that really so terrible? Would have been really so terrible if Keke Palmer was I don't know who she was dating at the time that she felt like she needed to get one. I don't know if she'd be married or not married or whatever. But whether she was a single mother or not, she's accomplished a lot. She has a lot. I don't know how much that would have or wouldn't have impacted their careers. But it is terrible that Hollywood is a place where people are like, inclusion and stuff, but the dark secret is that you could really jeopardize your careers if you do get pregnant like that, or so many women feel like they could. Charisma Carpenter, she would play Cordelia on Angel, and she wrote about how Joss Whedon was so like angry when he found out she was pregnant, and he was like really upset. She's I don't know how deeply religious she is, but I guess he wasn't comfortable with her faith or whatever, and expected her to get an abortion. A lot of people came out about Joss Whedon being pretty terrible. If you watch Angel, you know she had that baby, and I think that's basically why they had kind of wrote her out the show. But I mean, she basically was there till the end. Last season, she was just like in an episode or two. But to know behind the scenes that there's that kind of pressure on women, that's the sort of thing that feminists fought against, like being in the workplace and not having to be discriminated against for being pregnant. And now we're at the point where women feel like they're not empowered if they can't not be pregnant. And so people say that stripping away Roe v. Wade is going to take us backwards. I feel like we're a long way past backwards, but I think they're the ones who are backwards. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. There was some Comic-Con stuff that I wanted to talk about. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that. Thank you guys for joining me. I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. Check out different videos. Make sure you follow me across all my different social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch. All my handles are at blacktnews, like black like the color tea, like the drink, with the exception of Twitter. That one is at True Black Tea. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, there should be some links in there that can take you to the appropriate place. Make sure you guys check out different merchandise, like the I Am Not the Victim You're Looking For shirt. You got the Be Better Not Bitter shirt. Really cool stuff that you guys can check on the website. Really quickly, I did enjoy myself. I was at Once Upon a Book this weekend, sold some books, especially like my Super Kid book that did pretty well. It was an authors event, so a lot of people had different stuff that they were selling. Where they're all authors, but this is Super Kid was my bestseller, because even though people were picking up books for them, they're like, I need to get kids books for my kids. And I actually bought my table 2 years ago, but because of COVID, it got pushed off. And one girl, she was not so little anymore, but she walked by the table and she was like, I love that book. And it just melted my heart. If you guys go to blacktnews.com, there's a merchandise. On the merchandise page, there's a banner that will take you to my book website. But if you just search my name, Christina Barr, on Amazon, you'll find it. But I got a lot of stuff. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to support Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate if you want to support that way. Otherwise, thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and watching and commenting today, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow.